Welcome back to the Daily Dope. I'm your commentator and host, Brian Strong. And this is another edition of Retweeted, where I'm going to go down my, Twitter feed here and basically go over some of the stories that I've retweeted throughout the day. In fact, most of these came in today. Over the last 3 days, there was a ton of new stories to report on or whatever, just stuff that I feel like maybe I should pass along to my audience. But since it's advertised on the thumbnail and in the title, I'm going to start off with some Michigan quick updates. And let's go right into those. So the first thing to mention is that there's some things going on in Lansing. Now, I kind of touched up on it a little bit in one of my Michigan updates. And basically, they've been hashing away at this Lansing ordinance for medical marijuana facilities for quite some time. And they finally come up with compromises on it. They finally hashed it out. They finally voted on it, passed it, and set up a deadline for it. The deadline was going to be October 5th, I think. So that's when, you can churn them in. Oh, starting 8 a.m. Monday. So anyway, they started passing out the applications Friday, which would have been today. It's no longer Friday. It's Saturday now. But anyway. So those interested in obtaining medical marijuana licenses for certain commercial establishments can get applications at the city clerk SWOP's office on starting Friday, although dispensaries must wait. The city's new medical marijuana ordinance takes effect Saturday and sets up licensing for 5 types of marijuana businesses: provisioning centers, also known as dispensaries, safety compliance facilities, processor facilities, secure transporter facilities, grower facilities. Starting at 8 a.m. Monday, SWOP's office will accept applications for safety compliance, processor, secure transporter, and grower licenses. The office won't accept applications for provisioning centers until the city sets dates for a 30-day application period. Keep in mind, all this is like ahead of the state's December 15th goal of having these things available, or that's when they'll be able to start taking applications in for the facilities. Another thing interesting about this story here is that Lansing plans on capping provisioning centers at 25. Didn't set number limits for other facilities. And that's funny because last time I checked, Lansing had quite a few more dispensaries than 25. It was like 70. So then, wouldn't you know it, today, the day that they said, yes, we're going to be passing applications out on Friday, that same day, a group called Lansing Vote filed petitions Friday afternoon seeking a referendum on the city's new medical marijuana ordinance. The ordinance for commercial properties was approved by City Council last month and was supposed to go into effect on Saturday. If the group turned in enough signatures, either the council must repeal the ordinance or send it to city voters, which would not happen until 2018. So wait, let me get this right. If this is what I'm reading is correct, then there might not be any facilities in general till sometime after 2018 when a vote is held. SWOP has 15 calendar days to review petitions and determine if the signatures and forms are valid and proper. The group needs at least 4,600 valid signatures, SWOP said. That's pretty, and this is out of the blue, and in my opinion. I don't really I've been kind of paying attention to what's going on in Lansing, but this is really like just swooped in on me. If SWOPE finds the signatures and group petitions valid, the city council has 30 days to repeal the ordinance or submit it to city voters. And I think that's what they're talking about. They would have to put it to a vote. I mean, that's the name of their group, Let Lansing Vote. And I mean, what is the deal with this? This is something that the city council has been hashing out for quite some time. And then here's a quote from this group. Quote, Lansing citizens and activists spoke out against the ordinance the day it was passed, and the city council didn't listen, said Sarah Gailey, a spokesperson for the group. We think the citizens of Lansing deserve a vote on the issue. So were they at the city council meeting? Because I think they heard from all sides like several times. Like this thing wasn't just like one time thing. Swope said the referendum attempt also stops the city's plan to begin accepting applications on Monday for licenses to operate certain commercial marijuana establishments. Quote, right now until we finish the review, we are not doing anything, Swope said. So delay. Thorn in the side here for this, the first evidence of this new kickoff of the Medical Marijuana Facilities Act in Michigan. This is the first sign of I don't know what you want to call it, a bad start or getting off on the wrong foot. Because this is Lansing, this is like the capital of the state. This is where the government operates, and you'd think that they could get it right. And the ordinance is something that, it wasn't just something that someone, just kind of made up as they went along. This is like well thought of, hammered out ordinance. Now, granted, like I said, it didn't give enough dispensaries right out of the gate, but it didn't say anywhere in there that would be some kind of a permanent cap either. So, well, this is really weird. But, of course, no matter what happens, for all marijuana establishments to operate in the city, officials will require licenses from both the city and the state. More thuggy language coming out of the situation in general, making it sound like if you have an existing dispensary, your days are numbered. And on that front, we have one more story to talk about for Michigan. And that is that the takeover is continuing. The enforcement of the Supreme Court ruling that said that dispensaries were not allowed continues to happen. The question is it, what happens when the, the regulated dispensaries open up? I mean, aren't they going to be basically doing the same thing that these guys are doing now? I mean, can't you just like preemptively grandfather them guys all in? I don't see why not, At least give them the option of paying to get in or, phase out or whatever I don't even understand how you can't find a way, for the people that have already been doing it. They're already trusted in the community. They're already paying taxes. They already have customers that know who they are. So it doesn't make any sense. And on that front, up north, things are getting really sketchy. So 8 medical marijuana dispensaries were taken out in Grand Traverse County. 4 within Traverse City limits. Great Lakes Helping Hands on the State Street, Traverse City Provisioning Center, Select Provisions, and Superior Genetics. Superior Genetics? Oh my goodness. Oh my God. So 4 in the county, the pharmacy in the Fire Lake, Interlochen, Alternative Health, Great Lakes Helping Hands in Williamsburg, and Green Relief in Grawn. Wow. And authorities seized plants marijuana plants, edibles, wax, and U.S. currency from the 8 locations because of large overages, said Michigan State Police Lieutenant Josh Lader. Michigan law allows caregivers 2.5 ounces of marijuana per patient, and each caregiver is allowed up to 5 patients. The enforcement action comes before a new law allowing such dispensaries with municipalities' approval takes effect in December. This is sad because I don't understand. Like these guys weren't doing anything wrong. It's just that you're saying they were doing what the Supreme Court said was wrong and what everybody else interprets the law loosely and just says, oh, you can make rules since you didn't protect for specific things. And they try to do it with transporting marijuana in the cockpit. And that's getting, rejected because it's just not with the spirit of the law. But I guess on, shutting down dispensaries and giving people charges and saying that they're breaking the law, I guess you really have to have a supersonic lawyer or something, man. I don't understand how anybody's going to get out of this trouble. County Prosecutor Bob Cooney said the new law largely drove the searches. He said the state officials previously distributed a notice warning such businesses to close or they may not be able to get licensed in the future. Local law enforcement agencies also would receive grant money for shutting down dispensaries that operate illegally, he said. Really? This is just insanity what's going on with Michigan, man. I've never received a complaint for an illegal business, Cooney said, ever since I've been elected anyway, since 2012. So, he don't think it's illegal, I mean, these places have all been operating within the limits of, or whatever rules that they agreed with the towns that they're in. Cooney said the complaints came from TNT Investigations. He said he asked for more investigation before determining they operated illegal. Authorities found the establishment sold marijuana to people who were not patients of sellers, he said. And that's another thing that the Supreme Court in Michigan decided at one point, that this law that passed in 2008 doesn't authorize anybody to exchange marijuana for money to anybody. The only people that can get marijuana from other people is a patient can get it from the caregiver. They can compensate the caregiver for, costs and whatever. TNT detectives and other local law enforcement officers served the notices Wednesday after authorities searched the facilities and deemed them non-compliant. So, I don't even know. I mean, the rest of this is even more sad to even think about what's going on in Traverse City. So we have an opioid epidemic in Michigan, just like everybody else does all over the country. And it seems like there's a lot more that can be done if we focus our resources on trying to deal with that situation instead of the non-violent, non-overdose death, practically non-addictive marijuana. So Traverse City Police Chief Jeff O'Brien said he and TNT detectives have been looking into local dispensaries for several years, but were sidelined because of the opioid epidemic. It was put on the back burner for quite some time, O'Brien said. O'Brien said concerns arose after 2 incidents during the past few weeks in which 14-year-olds who used marijuana, one called police thinking he was overdosing from a marijuana Rice Krispie treat, and another was under the influence of the drug, and drove a vehicle to a That's Pizza. This is stuff kids will do. I mean, I don't know about the overdosing on the Rice Krispie treat. I probably, how is that connected to the dispensary? Quote, we're getting this drug use that's being pushed down into your young teens, he said. Quote, we need to get a handle on who is complying with the law, and it's pretty obvious the dispensaries within Grand Traverse County and within the city, they're not following the law as it is now. They're selling away from their patients for profit. Now, like I said, he's got no proof that these kids basically get their marijuana Rice Krispies or whatever from anything to do with the dispensary. And then, I mean, he's just basically saying a bunch of stuff that he thinks is going on with marijuana because, you know, I don't know. I mean, this is just typical, regular, run of the mill, negative talk about marijuana that doesn't really, you could have said this at any time in history because they always say this, the people that hate marijuana. We're getting this drug use that's being pushed down into our young teens. What does that even mean? You have to have a medical marijuana card to get marijuana at a dispensary, so it's definitely not the direct fault of anybody at the dispensary. Dispensaries don't even let you in the door unless you have a card and it's up to date and all that stuff. So I don't know what this is all about. He's like, we need to get a handle on who is complying with the law, and it's pretty obvious the dispensaries and blah 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 are not following the law as it is now. You can't follow the law as it is now. The law as it is now doesn't allow for dispensaries until sometime after the applications are supposed to get looked at. I heard the spring maybe, but selling away from their patients for profit. That's what dispensaries have had to do. That's what they do. And they'll be legal to do that once the regulated system kicks into play. So in the meantime, we just arrest people for doing what people are going to be doing with no arrest later. That's really ridiculous. So, today it's going to be different than tomorrow. The undercover TNT buyers of marijuana also showed the dispensaries had not been recording tax. That's because there's no tax on medical marijuana as of right now. Quote, we don't even know how much money these dispensaries are making. We have no idea or no way of tapping that revenue, O'Brien said. The revision is to get the tax so we can put that back into prevention. Look, man, that's all written into the new law and stuff, but right now they don't have that yet, and so that's not a thing up until then. And those were all whatever the dispensaries were doing is they had some kind of an agreement with the local municipality, and they had to pay them something, taxes or whatever. So I don't even understand that. He's acting like sales tax or something like that. I'm not sure. I really don't know what he's talking about there. The notice is signed by Cooney State. 2 court decisions made it clear that Michigan Medical Marijuana Act does not permit dispensaries or collectives. It states the decisions also do not permit transfers or sales between patients. But those dispensaries have already been operating for quite some time. And he just used the excuse that we were too busy worried about the opioid problem. We didn't have we didn't have the resources to go just raid these guys. Now all of a sudden you have the resources to raid 8 of them at the same time. All that work, man, all that evidence, those court cases for all those people. I don't know where you got the resources for it. Jail, who knows how long people are going to be in jail for this. That's about it for this one. But once again, they all want to know. I'd be really interested about how much monetary benefit comes in their pockets as a result of these raids. Said that was their defense attorney, Jesse Williams. He questioned how long the Travers narcotics team detectives knew the businesses operated illegally, especially if they were victims if there were victims from their potential violations. I mean, it's basically saying that something was going on that they didn't approve of, but nobody was really getting harmed by it. So if you believe both of the stories at the same time, I don't know, man. A lot of bad things going on in Michigan around these new regulations coming into play. That much we can be sure of. Got time to do a few more stories here. Kevin Sabet takes on Colorado at an anti-marijuana event. called, get this, Marijuana's True Impact on Colorado. Okay. This time, I think they heard us last time, and I don't know where this picture came from. Okay, that apparently that came from a cannabis person. But anyway, it seems like we could get a better crowd shot. I think the crowd, if there even is one, is basically a bunch of older people like these guys here. And maybe a lot of these guys here, these ghosts. But you don't really have a big audience. And these things, these seminars or whatever they are, this one was at the Colorado Christian University. And that's the place we remember. They push out propaganda. They have a propaganda website. So we know all about them already. And he's probably friends with the guy. I think that guy was something there too. And I can't remember. He said something about how, legalization was destroying Colorado. And this, I guess the theme of this one is that he's trying to build marijuana up as to be like the next big tobacco or big alcohol. And, oh, it took us 90 years to wake up from our tobacco nightmare. And, acting like marijuana is bad. And, it's just another one of those things. You got your alcohol and your marijuana. But somehow he ties this stuff in to the opioids by saying stuff about that. And we might see that here. I'm going to read that when I get to it. But so supposedly the people that were there, he says the day-long event brought together anti-legalization groups, law enforcement, educators, medical professionals, public policy experts to open everyone's eyes to the downfalls for the drug. Yeah. Somehow, substance abuse problems are poly-substance abuse problems. They're not done in a vacuum, he said. And that's the new buzzword that they're using. And I don't understand that one, because basically you're saying that because someone smoked weed, then they're since the other drug, that's the only way that what you're saying is true, is if weed's in the black market, then somebody has to go to the black market to buy marijuana. Next thing you know, they got all the other drugs right there in front of them. So is that what you're talking about when you say this poly problem? I don't know. Anyway, so he asserted the vast majority of those dying of opioid overdoses have tried and used a lot of marijuana and alcohol in their life, citing a September 27 study published in the American Journal of Psychiatry, that found cannabis use appears to increase the risk of developing non-medical prescription opioid use. Come on, man. I'm looking at the people who are dying today, and I can't divorce marijuana and alcohol. All the other substances that are going on with that. What? Oh, this is ridiculous. Coloradoans also need to wake up if they think marijuana legalization is about social justice, Sabet said, rejecting what he called a false dichotomy between locking up drug users and people of color in the war on drugs or full marijuana legalization. He said that the arrest rates for juveniles of color had gone up post-legalization, and also pointed out the high concentration of pot shops in Denver's Hispanic and African American communities. And there's your reason why the juvenile rates of arrest, like you said right here, of color, post-legalization have increased. And incidentally, in Denver, in those neighborhoods where people of color live, there seems to be a high concentration of dispensaries, because that's the only place where the ordinance would allow them. And the reason why you have this increase in juveniles getting arrested is because the cops, quite frankly, don't have anybody else to arrest. If you're 21 and up, you don't get a ticket. It's decriminalized. So, come on, guys. This is just Kevin Sabet letting out air. Oh, here's a little video. Let's just kind of comb over the crowd real quick. I don't know how loud we
All right,
are.
we're going to get started. Good morning, everybody. Thank
Oh,
you
hell
so
no. But let's look at the crowd. You got a crowd shot?
Exactly 10:15, and how that contributes.
Hour and 27 minutes. Does he really talk for the whole time?
State for the ballot initiative.
This guy is just god awful to watch, man. I've watched him before.
It then rose again. It then started back down.
Yeah, that pie chart they got where the numbers are going down, all that is people that still believe in this reefer madness bullshit that you're pushing. That's what those charts are. Come on, man. This story has been brought to you by Alex Pasqualio. Probably read him a couple times. I do remember. Yeah, so that's that, man. Kevin Sabet, big deal. No one cares about this guy anymore. He's just full of shit. This is kind of a bad story. A Florida nursing home, and I'm going to pull this because we're going to tell you which one it is. And if you know anybody in this nursing home, be sure to try to save them and move them to a nursing home that's not full of shit. So the senior citizen suffering very bad pain, Parkinson's disease, wheelchair. Simpson is the name, Charlotte Simpson. And this is in Cypress Hills, Florida. And her friend, Brett Green, said, oh wait, Brett Green's actually her son, and he said that she's tried everything there is to try. I'm hearing that after medical marijuana became legal in Florida, a doctor prescribed it for his mother, and she applied for a compassionate use permit. When she was finally approved and the medicine was delivered, they gave it to me and told me to take it home with me, Green said. Nobody from the home would speak on camera, but a spokesman sent a statement saying, "Our top priority is care, safety, and comfort of our patients. Like all healthcare facilities in Florida and in any other state that permits the use of medical marijuana, we are seeking to balance and comply with the clear prohibitions of federal law and flexibility afforded under state law." Weird. The law said that it's legitimate medical marijuana therapy and you've gotten a legal medical prescription. So there's no reason why this should be a situation. Yeah. I thought I had the name of the facility. Oh, here we go. Zephyrs Hill Health and Rehab Center, which is operated by Advent's Health System. The same company that owns Florida Hospital. So you got a lot of people in Florida that's not too keen on the medical marijuana. Publix, big, drugstore, grocery store chain, they're not down. They put a bunch of money fighting to keep it illegal. California marijuana grow houses account for 75% of the U.S. indoor marijuana seized by authorities in 2016. Sunnyvale votes to ban recreational marijuana dispensaries, and this is in California. And there's a lot of this going on. I'm seeing this happening all up and down the coast. There's places scrambling to opt out of the recreational marijuana market. Again, you're just losing money. You're shooting your foot and all that. So during Obama, we had not the greatest things going on with the drug war. I mean, there was a couple of good things that were happening that I could report on, but there was a lot of shit that was pretty awful. And one of those was that the IRS was targeting marijuana nonprofits for greater scrutiny. Whoa, what the hell? When does it end? And this isn't nothing short here. Yeah. There's no reason for that. Okay, a couple other stories there. Alcohol use, not cannabis, is associated with changes in the brain structure, and they're not good changes. Spoiler alert. And another thing, Obama. All right, the DEA report comes out and it says normal marijuana seizures increased by 20% in 2016. I've been talking about this story for a while too. That's kind of developing in the background. It's kind of like the carpet bombing when you stop some war with like Vietnam and you leave. On your way out, you carpet bomb, I guess, is what we do. We did it there. We did it in several other theaters around the world, and apparently, it looks like the DEA and even local police are planning on doing it again. Because in 2016, 20% increase overall of the 2015 seizure totals. It is the most plants seized by the DEA since 2011 when agents confiscated more than 6.7 million plants. Are we talking about the ditchweed that we know that they use to pad their numbers? Well, I don't know. Federal agents seized an estimated 552,000 plants in Kentucky, 333,000 in Texas, 128,000 in Tennessee, 124,000 in West Virginia. I really would like to know if that was the ditchweed or not, because those are some big numbers. And when you see numbers like that, you think there's a lot of people heading to the county jail or prison or both. But right here, of course, it says only 7% of all marijuana seized by the DEA comes from indoor grows. That's because, like I've been saying for a long time, the DEA don't really go after people with small numbers. 100 plants is where they kind of start. And that just because you grow 100 plants don't necessarily mean the DEA's got you on their radar. They don't, they're looking for those federal trespassers too. They're looking for big grows, hundreds of plants, 1,000 plants, thousands of plants. So they also reported making 5,657 arrests in conjunction with their cannabis eradication efforts, a 10% decline from 2015. So they're getting more plants and less people arrested for them. What does that tell you? Is it a smaller number of people doing bigger grows, or who knows what other? There could be a million reasons why that is, but that's a pretty big tip of the scale, I guess you could call it. The DEA also reported seizing some $52 million in assets during their confiscation operations, nearly twice as much as the agency reported the prior year. More of that carpet bombing. They see that marijuana, is getting legalized in more places and decriminalized in more places, and people are getting more brazen with grow operations, and who knows, man. It's happening not just, like I said, on the federal level, but on a small local level. Arrests are spiking as legalization is rapidly spreading, and it's just going to keep on continuing to happen. Oh, what do you know? Bingo. There's a story about it right there. So support for marijuana legalization is higher than ever. So is the number of people arrested. And we did the numbers. We have 653,249 arrests involving cannabis in 2016. That's an arrest involving marijuana every 48 seconds. Marijuana arrests made up for 41% of all drug busts in the U.S. in 2016. So, yeah, that was originally this article. In case you didn't know, like I seen somebody mention in a comment section the other day, they were talking about, you know, how nobody lets you grow weed at home, because somebody was talking about the My Legalize thing, and how, oh, Michigan will never have something like that, or shouldn't. Nobody should. Michigan will never have something where everybody can grow weed at their house. And I was like, yeah, it's in the petition, man. That would be what people would vote for. 12 plants. And they were like, oh, you know, no other state that has legalized marijuana lets you grow. Well, the fact is Washington's the only state. Of the 8 states with legal weed, Washington forbids recreational home growing. We're talking about Washington State, not Washington, D.C. But they're trying to change that. It's about the ball moving forward, says the director of Washington Normal. It's 4th and 1, and you're either going for it or waiting to come back and hope for a Hail Mary. So I don't know what the chances are or whatever of this happening. There was a better article about this, is like a summary. Like it looked like the option was kind of weird. So I'm not sure. I would get the details of that story maybe in a weekly clip soon. I know it's been a while since I did a weekly clip, and I don't know if I'm going to do as many as I used to, but there's been a lot of stories. So here's your cool place to check out on Twitter of the day. It's called stopthedrugwar.org, at stopthedrugwar. And they throw these tweets out from time to time. You got your weekly corruption summary looking like this, and it just basically tells you this week's corrupt cop stories. And sometimes there's a couple of them, sometimes there's a lot of them. Here's a DEA agent in New Orleans who was arrested on charges related to the DEA task force led by Agent Chad Scott. The task force members are accused of stealing property and thousands of dollars in drug investigations, as well as a raft of related offenses. Scott and Hammond police officer Rodney Germer are accused of participating in a 7-year conspiracy to not report drug, cash, and property seizures, and instead keep them for their own profit. We've seen a couple of these cases just get dismissed lately, so who knows what will happen there. In Florida, we have Orlando. Department of Homeland Security officer was arrested last Monday for allegedly taking bribes to help a Colombian cocaine trafficker avoid criminal charges. Special Agent Christopher Sicione was the case agent for an organized crime and drug trafficking task force that obtained indictments for a number of Cali cartel cocaine traffickers. But Sicione is accused of taking a $20,000 bribe to get the indictment dismissed and altering the records and lying to federal prosecutors. He is charged with conspiracy, corruption, and obstruction of justice. I didn't know they actually had a charge for that. I guess they could. Corrupting the police. So that's a good place to check out if you already don't know about that. Congressman Matt Gaetz talks about how medical marijuana benefits people with breast cancer. And this guy is from Northwest Florida. And he says his tweets are his own. Did that. Colorado raked in $200 million in taxes last year from $1.3 billion in sales. And from what it looks like, Nevada's going to beat them up. And I'm sure in the long haul, California is going to be the turtle that wins the race. Supporters of marijuana home grows say it should be as natural as... no, there's no reason why they shouldn't allow home growing in Washington. Was this the summary article? I don't know. Okay, running out of stories. Not really. There's so many. we have the Alberta Cannabis Framework. So you can grow indoors, but not outdoors. Here, let's run that back.
After legalization, 18 will be the proposed minimum age to purchase cannabis, the same as for alcohol and tobacco.
Thank you, Canada.
If you're an adult, you'll be able to possess up to 30 grams of dried cannabis in public. Cannabis consumption will be allowed in homes and in some public spaces where smoking tobacco is allowed, but restricted in places where kids tend to be, like school grounds and playgrounds. You'll be able to grow up to 4 cannabis plants in your home, but not outdoors where kids can potentially access them.
A kid.
Let us know what you think of our proposed approach.
Well, that was weird. But anyway, Canada's got a lot of things going on with the medical marijuana laws being disseminated. So I'll go over that when everything kind of like stops hitting the ground, I guess. Israeli study finds that medical marijuana helps kids with cerebral palsy. Might want to check that story out as well. Supreme Court. Okay, we're just kind of like getting off into the woods here. They had a pot tax error and nobody got no money in Colorado. And, you know, that's how it goes. Now, the Gorilla Glue situation kind of ended too with the, I guess, a settlement and kind of a situation where if you were selling Gorilla Glue, you have to call it GG number 4 now. And yeah, okay, whatever. That I don't see how that's gonna really be a thing, but I guess it is. Well, you know, I think that's all I got for you. Oh, and one on a final note, the last story, ironically. Yeah, Maryland's finally got their first medical cannabis crop, but it's not for sale yet. When I don't know exactly when they passed their law, 2014 maybe, or even before that, 2012. This has been the slowest rollout ever, so we'll see what happens. That's all I got for this episode. But we'll do this again sometime. But I would like to get back to making a weekly show. And maybe we'll do that next. Who knows? Meanwhile, yeah, a lot of stuff going on. So stay tuned.